I bought this repossessed Bugatti Veyron with supposedly a broken gearbox. Nothing happens if I try to go into drive. Nothing happens. But we managed to solve the problem with just a tiny fuse.
A man named Matt Armstrong bought a broken Bugatti Veyron, and what he found inside it has made people all over the car world stop and think. A Bugatti Veyron is not a normal car. It is one of the most famous and most expensive cars ever built. A machine that costs more than most people's houses. People who buy these cars believe they are paying for something completely different from anything else on the road. They believe every part inside is special, made only for this one car, and built by hand in a secret workshop in France. So when Matt Armstrong opened up his Veyron and started looking at the parts inside, the last thing anyone expected was to find something so simple, so cheap, and so ordinary. There was a part number stamped on a small piece inside the car, and when Matt looked it up, it did not lead back to some fancy French car maker. It led back to a Volkswagen Lupo, a small and cheap city car that sells for about £5,000. This was strange, because Matt had paid much more than that just for one part. It made him pause and wonder how many other parts inside his expensive car might tell a similarly surprising story once he started looking closely. That single question turned out to be the spark that led him down a much bigger rabbit hole than he ever expected. The story does not stop there. As Matt dug deeper into his Bugatti, he found part after part that traced back to ordinary cars like the Volkswagen Lupo, the Audi A6, and the Volkswagen Phaeton. These are cars that normal families drive every day, not hypercars worth millions. This discovery raised a big question that the whole video is built around. When you spend $2 million on a car, are you really paying for special engineering, or are you mostly paying for the badge on the front of the car? Matt Armstrong did not set out to make some big political statement against Bugatti. He just wanted to fix his car. But what he found while fixing it turned into one of the most talked about stories in the car world, and by the end, it makes you look at supercars and the prices people pay for them in a completely different way. This article walks through the whole story, step by step in simple words, so you can understand exactly what Matt found, how he found it, and why it matters not just for Bugatti owners, but for anyone who owns an expensive car. It is also a story about trust, because when someone spends millions of pounds on a single machine, they are trusting the company that built it to be honest about what is actually inside. Matt's discovery puts a real test on that trust, and it does so with numbers and receipts rather than guesswork or rumor. That is part why the story spread so fast once people saw it. Because it is not just one man complaining about a price. It is one man showing exact proof, part by part, of what he found and what it actually cost him to fix it properly. It also helps to remember that most people never get a real look inside a car like this, because almost nobody outside an official dealer ever opens one up and pulls the parts apart piece by piece. Matt did exactly that on camera, with nothing to hide, and that openness is a big part why his findings carry so much weight with viewers who simply want honest answers about where their money actually goes. The story really begins with how Matt Armstrong got his hands on this car in the first place. A Bugatti Veyron is not just any supercar. When Volkswagen Group put into production back in 2005 at a factory in Molsheim, France, it was seen as the most complicated road car ever made. Inside it sits a huge engine shaped like the letter W, with 16 cylinders and 4 turbochargers, basically like 2 V8 engines joined together. This engine alone pushes out more than 1,000 horsepower to all 4 wheels, which is an incredible amount of power for a road car. The Veyron could reach a top speed of 253 miles per hour, and when the Super Sport version came out in 2010, it set a world record for the fastest road car ever made. Only 450 of these cars were ever built, and the very last one, called the Bugatti Veyron Grand Sport Vitesse La Finale, rolled off a production line in 2015. Because so few were made, and because each one is so advanced, people in the car world often say these are not just cars, they are rolling monuments, almost like pieces of art that happen to also drive. Owning one is rare enough on its own, but owning a repossessed one, a car that already passed through trouble before reaching Matt, made this purchase even more unusual than a normal Veyron sale would have been. So when a repossession company called Matt Armstrong and offered selling a Veyron that had been taken back from its previous owner, he understood right away that this was a huge deal. A car like this almost never comes up for sale at a lower price, especially not through a repossession company. But he also understood something else just as clearly. A deal like this was going to come with a lot of trouble attached to it. Still, he decided to buy it anyway, paying what he described as a price significantly lower than the normal market value. Even though buying any Veyron, even at a discount, still means spending a huge amount of money. Plenty of people in his position might have walked away the moment they heard the word repossess attached to a car this complicated, simply because of how much could be hiding under the surface. But Matt saw it as an opportunity worth taking a chance on. When Matt actually got the car and looked it over, he found some good news and some bad news. The good news was that the outside of the car looked stunning, almost in mint condition, and the inside looked barely touched, like someone had wrapped it up carefully and never really used it hard. When he turned the key for the first time, the giant W16 engine fired up and made a sound so powerful that it stopped people in the workshop and made them stare. For a moment, it seemed like Matt had gotten an amazing deal on a car that just needed a little bit of love. Anyone watching might have thought the hard part was already over, that all that remained was a quick cleanup and a test drive before the car was ready to enjoy. But then the car simply would not move. It just sat there, stuck, no matter what he tried. This was the moment everything changed, and it was a moment that kicked off one of the most surprising car repair stories anyone has filmed. Nobody watching at that point could have guessed just how far the single breakdown would end up leading. The first big problem Matt ran into was with the gearbox, and this is where the story starts to get really interesting. When he tried to put the car into gear, nothing happened. It would not engage at all. It was like someone had welded the car into park and thrown away the key. In the world of supercars, when something this serious goes wrong, there's a very predictable next step. You call the official dealership. You explain the problem, and you wait for them to send you a quote for the repair. When Matt called Bugatti about the gearbox, the quote he got back was almost unbelievable. They told him it would cost somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000 just to fix the gearbox on a car he had only just bought. Try to imagine that number for a second. That is more money than most people will ever spend on a house. And it was being asked just to fix one part of a car. Most people, faced with a bill like that, would have given up right there. They might have sold the car for parts, or shipped it off to a dealer to deal with, just to be rid of the headache. But Matt Armstrong is not most people. Instead of accepting the huge quote, he decided to roll up his sleeves and find out what was actually wrong with the car himself. He started pulling things apart carefully, tracing wires, running tests, and working through the electrical system almost like a detective trying to solve a mystery. What he eventually found made his jaw drop, and it will probably make yours drop too. The entire problem was caused by one single blown fuse. Not a complicated computer issue, not a broken mechanical part deep inside the gearbox, just one small fuse that had failed. And how much does a replacement fuse like that cost? Just $3. Bought from a shop called Halford's, which in the United Kingdom is a bit like a big chain store for car parts and tools, similar to how Walmart works for general shopping in America. So here's the full picture. Bugatti's official network was ready to charge Matt $350,000 for a brand new gearbox, when the real problem the whole time was a fuse worth $3. The gearbox itself was never actually broken. It had simply shut down because the part controlling it had lost power due to that one tiny blown fuse. This raises an important question that sits at the heart of this entire story. Is this what people are really paying for when they buy Bugatti? Is this the kind of incredible engineering and exclusivity that justifies a horseshoe badge and a price tag in the millions? A diagnostic mistake that could have cost an owner $350,000, solved instead for the price of a cup of coffee by one careful man with a multimeter and a YouTube channel? It is a kind of gap between official price and real cost that makes anyone watching stop and reconsider what they thought they knew about luxury car ownership. It is a question worth carrying with you through every part of the story that follows, because it keeps coming back in different forms each time Matt opens up another part of car. Once Matt shared this fuse discovery, it became clear that this was only the beginning of what he would find hidden inside his Bugatti Veyron, and it set the tone for everything that came after. It also set the tone for how he would approach every problem from that point forward, by checking, testing, and questioning rather than simply accepting whatever number the official channel handed him. Even after Matt got the gearbox working again thanks to that simple fuse fix, the car was far from finished giving him trouble. His Veyron still had a nagging engine misfire, a problem where the engine was not firing properly, and it kept jumping around between different cylinders, sometimes settling on cylinder 16 and other times spreading to different areas. On top of that, coolant was steadily dripping from the front radiator, leaving small pink puddles on the workshop floor, almost like the car was quietly losing blood. There was also a fault in the fuse box itself, and once Matt got the car moving again, even more small electrical problems and warning lights kept appearing, like the car simply did not want to be fixed and kept throwing new challenges at him. Faced with all of this, Matt did what seemed like the most reasonable thing to do. He called Bugatti directly and asked to buy some basic parts. Things like filters, seals, fluids, and other simple components needed to do a proper service and chase down the remaining faults. Bugatti's answer was no. And it was not just a simple no. It was a very specific and carefully worded refusal that revealed a lot about how the company actually operates behind the scenes. Bugatti told Matt that they would not sell parts to anyone who was outside of their official, authorized service network. According to them, the only proper way to fix the car was to bring it physically to one of their official facilities, where only their own trained technicians would be allowed to work on it. Matt pointed out that this was basically a kind of legal trick, a system designed in a way that makes it almost impossible for anyone to rebuild or repair Bugatti independently. You cannot simply buy the parts yourself. You cannot work on the car in your own garage. You cannot even take it to an independent specialist who knows what they're doing. The only real option Bugatti gives you is to hand your car over to them completely and accept whatever bill they decide to write. Matt noted, in a pretty understated way, that Bugatti's customer service had not exactly been moving as fast as their cars. But instead of getting angry and giving up, he simply said something that fans of his channel have come to expect from him by now. It looked like he and his team were going to have to make all the service parts and everything else themselves. Whenever Matt Armstrong says a line like that, you already know something big is about to happen. Because that quiet stubbornness is exactly what has made his channel one of the most watched in the entire automotive world. None of his later victories, though. Not the cheap fuse, not the speed key he was about to make, not even solving the misfire, could have happened without the stubborn refusal to simply accept what he was told and walk away. It was the same mindset, the refusal to take a closed door as a final answer, that would carry him through every challenge still waiting ahead in this rebuild. Each time the official channel said no, Matt simply treated it as the start of a new puzzle rather than the end of the road. That attitude, more than any single tool in his workshop, turned out to be the real reason the story eventually became something bigger than just one repair job. It is also, in many ways, the same attitude that Right to Repair advocates around the world have been pushing for years, even if Matt never set out to join that movement on purpose. Around the same time, while getting the Veyron ready to actually drive properly, Matt ran into another interesting obstacle involving something called the top speed key. The Bugatti Veyron has a special mode called top speed mode, and to turn it on, you need a separate, special key that changes the way the car sits and moves, lowering the ride height and adjusting the car's shape, so it can safely reach its full top speed of 253 miles per hour. Without this special key, the car simply will not let you access its highest level of performance, because it acts as a safety gatekeeper. Naturally, getting an official replacement key like this from Bugatti comes with an extremely high price tag. By this point, Matt's Veyron had already gone through a lot of work, including refreshed bodywork, repaired damaged parts, a trim swap to a satin metallic silver finish, and most of the misfire issues chased down. Now he needed the speed key to unlock the car's full performance, but rather than paying Bugatti's steep price, he decided to sit down and actually study how the system worked. What he discovered surprised him. Despite all of the mystery and mythology built up around this special key, it turned out to use a fairly simple mechanical key design rather than some kind of advanced electronic system, something a skilled locksmith could actually understand and replicate. So that is exactly what Matt did, working with an auto locksmith to build a custom version of the key himself. Think about what that actually means. A YouTuber working out a regular UK workshop managed to reverse engineer a key for one of the most exclusive hypercars in the entire world, simply because the official system refused to give him any other way to get one. Even with the new custom key in hand, the car continued to fight back at every turn. A blown fuse knocked out the indicators. The ongoing misfire kept triggering more warning lights, and a tire pressure monitoring fault threatened to stop top speed mode working at all. Despite all of this, Matt eventually managed to drive the car more than 150 miles to a runway, almost without any major problems along the way, only for the car to suddenly lose power and begin shutting down, which pointed to a possible issue with the fuel pump control module. This was just one more obstacle in a long list of obstacles. But by this point, it was becoming very clear that this car was going to fight Matt Armstrong at every single step, and that Matt Armstrong was going to win every single time. Each new problem seemed designed to test whether he would finally give up, and each time, he simply found another way through. None of these earlier victories, not the $3 fuse, not the custom-made key, not even solving the misfire, could prepare anyone for what Matt found next, because this next discovery is really the heart of the entire story. It came down to one simple but very powerful question that Matt wanted answered for himself. Was he really paying for the engineering, the actual labor doing repairs, and the cost of parts themselves, or was he just paying for the badge on front of the car? This is a question that Bugatti's marketing department would probably prefer nobody ever ask out loud, because it sits underneath every single expensive bill the company sends out. Matt Armstrong went ahead and answered it anyway. He needed to get a standard annual service done on the Veyron, the kind of basic maintenance that almost every car needs at some point, involving things like oil changes, filter replacements, spark plugs, and various fluids. For a normal car, a service like this might cost a regular driver a few £100 at their local garage. For a Bugatti Veyron, though, the official quoted price from Bugatti's own network for this same kind of basic service was somewhere between $25,000 and $27,000. And then comes a part of the story that is genuinely hard to believe until you see the receipts for yourself. Because what Matt actually ended up spending on this same service is nowhere close to that huge number. This is where Matt Armstrong did something that one car journalist later described as a massive favor to the entire automotive community. After Bugatti refused to sell him parts directly, Matt did something refreshingly simple. He started carefully examining the components that were already fitted inside his own car. He looked closely at part numbers, cross-referenced them against other databases, and tried to figure out who actually manufactured each individual piece. What he found along the way was something Bugatti's head office probably never wanted regular people to discover. The accumulator tanks, which are components found inside the gearbox system, carried a specific part number. When Matt traced that number, he discovered that these accumulator tanks were the exact same units used in the Volkswagen Lupo, a small hatchback that originally sold new for under £10,000 and that you can now find secondhand for roughly the price of a short weekend trip. Bugatti's price for just two of these accumulators came out to $617 each, adding up to $1,235 per pair. The Volkswagen version of the exact same part cost about £200 total. But Matt was not finished there, not even close. The spark plugs, 16 of them in total to power that huge 16-cylinder engine, turned out to be completely standard NGK spark plugs, the kind used in many ordinary cars. Matt found these plugs for about £17.37 each from a normal supplier. Bugatti's price for the very same plug was $57 each. For a full set of 16 plugs, that works out to roughly £916 through Bugatti, compared to about £278 when sourcing them directly through normal NGK channels. The ignition coils told a similar story. All 16 of them turned out to be identical to the coils used in a Volkswagen Phaeton or a Bentley Continental GT with a 6.0-liter engine, both of which are standard Volkswagen Group parts. Bugatti's price for these coils came out to $245 each, which adds up to $3,923 for the full set of 16. On top of that, the labor needed to fit these coils, according to Bugatti's own official time estimates, was quoted at 23.5 hours of work. At Bugatti's labor rate, that alone worked out to roughly $6,627 in labor charges just to swap out coil packs. Even small fluids were marked up heavily. The special Haldex fluid needed for the car, of which only half a liter was required for a refill, cost $191 through Bugatti's official channels, compared to about £29 from a standard automotive supplier. The gearbox pump that had been causing some of the persistent faults in the Veyron traced back to a part used in the Audi A6 all-road model. The The cost for this part directly from Audi was about $1,121, while Bugatti's equivalent quote for the same kind of part came in at $3,615. Matt sourced just the pump motor on its own for around €268, bought two of them, swapped the wiring plugs himself, and got the job finished. Every single one of these discoveries added up to the same basic pattern. Parts that Bugatti was charging an enormous premium for were, in many cases, identical or extremely similar to parts already used in much cheaper, everyday Volkswagen Group cars. Taken one at a time, each discovery might look like a small coincidence, but laid side by side the way Matt presented them, they form an unmistakable pattern that is very hard to explain away as anything other than deliberate pricing strategy. The deeper he dug, the clearer it became that this was not a one-off mistake hidden in a single component, but consistent approach running through nearly every part of the car. When everything was finally added up, Matt Armstrong's total bill for the entire service came to exactly $1,193.83 in American currency, which works out to roughly $1,600 overall, compared to the $25,000 to $27,000 that Bugatti's official network had quoted for the very same kind of work. In percentage terms, Matt managed to save more than 93% of the official cost, simply by refusing to accept the idea that the parts fitted inside a Bugatti must automatically be something completely unique and impossible to source elsewhere. He treated his $2 million hypercar for what it actually is underneath all the branding. A machine built from identifiable, traceable, and in many cases, replaceable components that other car owners use every single day. The oil service alone required 14 liters of 10W60 oil, the same type of oil also used by brands like BMW and Aston Martin, designed specifically to handle very high engine temperatures. This oil had to be poured through 16 separate engine sump plugs, each one removed individually, fitted with a fresh washer, and then carefully put back in place. The oil filter itself was sourced through a man named Simon Falonger, an independent Bugatti specialist who works outside of the official factory network and offers parts at prices well below what the official dealership system charges. Not every part of this process went perfectly smoothly, though. The mass airflow sensors gave Matt some real trouble along the way. He ordered the exact same part number on 2 separate occasions and somehow received 2 different units each time. In the end, he solved the problem in a creative way by transplanting the actual sensor elements directly into the original housings rather than relying on the mismatched replacement parts. This is exactly the kind of hands-on, creative problem-solving that Bugatti's official system seems specifically designed to make as difficult as possible for independent owners. So, how did